Hello and welcome to Sectors Up Close. I'm Angeline Ong. Our focus today is on investing in infrastructure, and our guest is Max Grinacoff, equities derivative strategist at BNP Paribas. Now, from an investment point of view, infrastructure appears like a no-brainer. Governments and businesses around the world are clamoring to move to a zero-carbon future, which will require huge investments in renewable energy. While developing countries such as China require communications infrastructure, driving up demand and prices for materials such as copper. But after an initial jump following the election of US President Joe Biden, this sector has not done that well. It's up 5% since the start of this year, so far underperforming the wider market. These are the companies that make up this index, while a handful of these companies, such as Italy's Atlantia, manage transportation infrastructure, such as roads and railways. The bulk are utilities, including NextEra and Duke Energy. So how can investors look to profit from this sector? Let's ask BNP's Max Grinacoff. Max, thank you so much for joining us. So you view an immediate threat to the sector, the deadlock in Congress over the debt ceiling. What's behind this thinking?
Yeah, so, our base case is that there will ultimately be a resolution on the debt ceiling, for instance, and the fiscal package will ultimately go through. But risks are certainly starting to brew under the surface. So first potential catalyst to note this Monday, the 27th, where we could get a vote for the bipartisan infrastructure package in the House. Risk is that they don't get it through or the vote is delayed. So with all that said, we think the potential benefits from the passage of the fiscal package are not fully priced in yet in the market. And that's really because, at least in our view, they're potentially being discounted by the risk that these negotiations potentially fall apart, or the ultimate size or constituency of the package is diminished.
So with that as a backdrop, let's look further out into the future. Doesn't the need, Max, and the push at the moment for the rapid construction of renewable energy make this sector a safe bet in the longer term?
Yeah, so ESG, and particularly the E aspect of that, has been a big focus for us this year, particularly in the U.S. Green energy is also a large part of the administration's infrastructure plan. So we do still think there are secular tailwinds for green energy, and conversely, secular headwinds for the traditional energy sector. Now, caveat to that, however, is that a lot of these green energy oriented names had a pretty exceptional run up heading into 2021. And while you can say valuations have compressed in certain areas, our focus has really been on screening for green energy names from a green energy expanded universe, if you will, but through the lens of GARP, or growth at a reasonable price.
And Max, other than green energy, you've got your own infrastructure basket. What is in this basket? I know you can't talk about specifics, but what kind of sectors?
Yeah, great question. So, our focus sectorally and thematically speaking has been on cyclical sectors such as, industrials and materials, and along with this custom infrastructure basket that you bring up. So the basket, we think, offers a differentiated implementation versus something like a traditional industrials or even infrastructure focused ETF, in that the basket is equally risk weighted across three sub themes that we feel could benefit from the fiscal package. Firstly, building and construction. Second is industrials and supply chain names. And more notably, and what we think offers the most differentiated aspect, is broadband and 5G names as well.
Right, thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. Max Grinacoff, equities derivative strategist at BNP Paribas, talking infrastructure. Now, before I go, here are some of the top stories in this space. Global automakers could lose $210 billion in revenue this year due to supply chain disruptions, nearly double an earlier forecast. This from consulting firm AlixPartners. It said the chip shortage was only part of the problem. High prices and tight supplies of commodities such as steel and plastic are driving up costs and forcing automakers to cut production. According to the latest forecast, automakers are on track to lose production of 7.7 million vehicles this year. Investment manager Ancilla Partners outbid Morgan Stanley Infrastructure in a rare auction to buy Aegean for £390 million or $530 million. It ends a month-long takeover battle for the UK-based waste management company. Buyout groups have circled British companies with multi-billion-dollar deals driven by cheaper valuations and Brexit. And finally, the US Senate looks set to vote next week on raising the US debt ceiling. This is according to the chamber's number 2 Democrat. Senator Dick Durbin says the chamber will take up the bill passed by the House of Representatives to suspend the $28.4 trillion debt ceiling. But Senate Republican Mitch McConnell has promised to sink the emergency legislation just days before funding for federal agencies expires on October the 1st. And that's your roundup of the infrastructure sector. I'm Angeline Ong, and this is Reuters.